Ngozi was a little girl with soft eyes that carried both sadness and hope. She had lost her father when she was very young, and her stepmother, Mama Folake, had taken the place of a mother in her life. But instead of kindness, Mama Folake gave her nothing but cruelty. She shouted at her for the smallest mistakes and always made her do all the house chores even though Ngozi could not see. While other children played in the streets, Ngozi's hands were busy washing, scrubbing, and fetching water. Sometimes she burned her fingers while cooking because her stepmother forced her to handle firewood. Yet even with her pain, she stayed quiet, never daring to raise her voice. Mama Folake never called her by her name. She would say, "Useless girl. Blind mouth to feed. Why did your father leave me with you?" The words hurt Ngozi more than the hard slaps that often followed. But Ngozi had learned to keep her tears hidden. She would sit in a corner, whispering to herself that one day life would change. Her heart was gentle, and even though she was treated badly, she never wished harm on Mama Folake. One hot afternoon, when the sun burned down on the roofs of the town, Mama Folake made a decision. She no longer wanted Ngozi in her house. She was tired of feeding a blind child, tired of answering the questions of neighbors who sometimes asked, "Why do you treat that little one so harshly?" Anger boiled in her chest. So she grabbed Ngozi by the arm roughly and said, "Get up. We are going out." Ngozi followed quietly. She could not see where they were going, but she could feel the pull of her stepmother's hand. Her small legs tried to keep up as they walked through dusty roads. When they reached the crowded town market, the sounds of traders filled the air. Women shouted about tomatoes and peppers. Men argued about prices of yams. Children ran around laughing. But in the middle of all this noise, Mama Folake pushed Ngozi down onto a corner near an old wooden stall. "Stay here," she said coldly. Her voice carried no love, no pity. And without another word, she turned and walked away. Her footsteps grew faint until they were swallowed by the sounds of the market. Ngozi sat still, her small hands folded tightly on her lap. At first, she thought maybe Mama Folake would come back. But the minutes passed, and the air around her grew heavier. Ngozi's heart pounded in her chest. She could hear strangers moving around, their voices rising and falling. Some people passed by her and muttered, "Why is this blind child sitting here alone?" Others ignored her completely. She tightened her hands together, trying to stop her body from shaking. She whispered a short prayer, asking God not to leave her alone. The ground felt rough beneath her, and the heat made her forehead damp. The smell of roasted corn, fried fish, and dust mixed together in the air. But instead of making her feel hungry, it only reminded her of how empty she was inside. She thought of the home she had left, even though that home had never been filled with love. At least she had known the walls, the sound of the door creaking, and the path to the water pot. Now she was in a place full of strangers, unable to see faces, unable to know who might harm her or help her. Her ears picked up many things. A woman bargaining loudly over pepper. A man pushing a wheelbarrow filled with yams. A child crying because his mother refused to buy him sweets. All these sounds came together, and yet they made Ngozi feel even more alone. She wanted to call out, but her voice felt trapped in her throat. What if no one cared? What if they laughed? Time moved slowly. Every minute felt like an hour. Ngozi pulled her knees close to her chest and leaned her head forward. She whispered to herself, "I am not alone. Someone will see me. Someone will care." Her voice was soft, almost lost in the noise, but those words gave her little strength. As she sat there, some traders noticed her. One woman carrying beans stopped and asked, "Child, where is your mother?" Ngozi did not know what to say. Should she tell the truth, that her stepmother had left her there? She opened her mouth, but only a whisper came out, "She is gone." The woman shook her head sadly and walked away, too busy with her goods to stay. Ngozi felt tears gathering in her eyes. She tried to wipe them with the back of her hand. Her heart was heavy, yet she refused to break completely. She remembered her father's gentle voice long ago, telling her before he passed away, "Ngozi, no matter what happens, you are precious." Those words were the only treasure she carried in her heart. The sun began to set, and shadows stretched across the market. Traders packed their goods, and the noise of the crowd slowly began to fade. Ngozi sat still in her corner, her small body trembling with both fear and hope. She wondered if she would be left there through the night. She wondered if anyone would see her, not as a burden, but as a child who needed care. Her lips moved again in prayer. "Please, God, send me someone kind." She did not know that her prayer was already on its way to being answered. For though her stepmother had thrown her away without mercy, life had not finished writing her story. Something was waiting for her beyond the loneliness of that corner, something that would change her life forever. Ngozi sat quietly, her back against the wooden stall, listening to the sounds of the market fading away. The air was cooling as the evening breeze moved through the streets. She felt weak, both from hunger and from fear. She wanted to move but did not know where to go. Her hands stretched in front of her, trying to feel her way carefully. She rose to her feet, but her legs felt heavy. Slowly, step by step, she began to walk. Her foot brushed against something hard, and suddenly she almost fell into a cart that had been left near the side of the road. Before she could hit the ground, a strong hand reached out and held her steady. "Be careful," a calm voice said. Ngozi froze, her small heart beating fast. The voice belonged to a young man. He gently held her arm so she would not fall. His touch was careful, not rough like her stepmother's had always been. "Are you all right?" he asked softly. Ngozi turned her head toward the sound of his voice. I'm fine," she whispered, though her voice shook. She wanted to sound brave, but her fear betrayed her. The young man studied her closely. He saw the way her eyes did not move like others, the way they seemed distant. He also saw the dust on her face and the way her clothes hung loosely on her small body. His heart filled with compassion. "You look tired," he said gently. "Have you eaten anything today?" Ngozi shook her head. "No," she replied quietly. Without another word, the young man, whose name was Obinna, guided her to a nearby stall that was still open. He bought a small plate of rice and stew and a bottle of water. Carefully, he placed the food in her hands. "Here," he said, "eat this. You need strength." At first, Ngozi hesitated. She was not used to kindness from strangers. But the smell of the food was strong, and her stomach ached with hunger. Slowly, she began to eat. Each bite felt like a blessing. Obinna sat nearby, watching quietly to make sure she was safe. When she had eaten a little, Obinna asked gently, "Why are you here alone? Where is your family?" Ngozi's hands froze on the spoon. For a moment, she said nothing. Her throat tightened, but finally, the words came out in a trembling voice. "My stepmother brought me here. She left me. She didn't want me anymore." Obinna's eyes darkened with sorrow. "She left you? Why would she do that?" "Because I cannot see," Ngozi whispered. "She always told me I am useless. She never loved me. Today, she said she was tired of me. She walked away and didn't come back." Her words hung in the air like a heavy weight. Obinna felt anger rise inside him, but he kept his voice gentle. "You are not useless," he said firmly. "Do not believe that." Ngozi turned her face toward the sound of his voice. No one had ever said those words to her since her father passed away. Her lips trembled, and she wanted to cry, but she held her tears back. Obinna reached for the bottle of water and placed it in her hands. "Drink," he said softly. She obeyed, sipping slowly, and then she sighed. For the first time that day, she felt a little safe. Obinna studied her again. She was just a little girl, fragile and alone, yet there was something strong in the way she sat, something brave in the way she spoke. He wanted to protect her. But he also knew he had to be careful. For Obinna was not just any young man. He was the son of the president of the country. If people recognized him, everything would change. But he did not tell her who he was. He did not want her to fear him or to treat him differently. He simply wanted her to feel safe. So, he kept his secret and only smiled. "Do you have anywhere to go tonight?" he asked quietly. Ngozi shook her head. "No. I have nowhere. She left me. I don't know what to do." Her voice was so small that Obinna's heart ached. He looked around the market. Most people had already packed their goods and gone home. The place was slowly growing dark. He could not imagine leaving her there. "You will not stay here alone," he said. "I will not let that happen." Ngozi's lips parted in surprise. "But why? You don't even know me." "Sometimes we don't need to know someone to care about them," he replied. "I know enough, that you are a child, that you need help, and that it is wrong to leave you here." She was quiet for a while, then whispered, "Thank you." Obinna smiled, though she could not see it. "Eat more," he encouraged. "You need strength for tomorrow." Ngozi nodded and took another bite of rice. She could feel something different in the air around this young man. His voice carried kindness. His words carried truth. He was not like the others who had walked past her without care. He stayed, listened, and even bought her food. For the first time in a long while, she felt like she mattered. As the night grew darker, Obinna knew he had to make a plan. He could not take her directly to the president's house. That would reveal who he was, and he did not want to frighten her or bring too many questions too quickly. Instead, he decided to stay close and find a safe place for her to rest. "Do you trust me, Ngozi?" he asked. She turned her head toward him. "I think I do," she said softly. He smiled again, feeling a warmth in his chest. "Then let me help you. I will not leave you here." And though Ngozi did not know who he truly was, she believed his voice. She held tightly to the memory of his words, "You are not useless," and for the first time since her stepmother abandoned her, she felt the light of hope flicker inside her heart. What Ngozi did not know was that her life was about to change in ways she could not imagine. The stranger who had saved her from falling was no ordinary young man. He was the son of the most powerful man in the country. And while she sat with her small hands resting on her lap, Obinna silently promised himself that he would protect her, no matter what it cost. From the day Obinna first met Ngozi, something inside him changed. He could not forget her face, her soft voice, or the way she sat with quiet dignity despite the pain in her life. She was blind, abandoned, and poor, yet she carried herself with a strength that even many who had everything could not show. That evening when he left her safely in the care of a kind old woman at the market, he promised himself that he would not allow her to feel alone again. The next morning, Obinna returned. He carried with him something he hoped would bring her joy, books in Braille. He had sent one of his men, secretly, to find them. As he approached the place where Ngozi sat, he called softly, "Ngozi, it is me, Obinna." Her face brightened at once. She turned toward the sound of his voice. "You came back," she said with a small smile. "Of course," he replied warmly. "I told you I would not leave you. I brought something for you." He placed the books in her hands. Her fingers moved across the raised dots, and her eyes widened with wonder. "Braille," she whispered. "You brought Braille books? How did you find these?" Obinna only chuckled. "Let us just say I have my ways. I want you to read, to learn, and to dream. Your blindness does not mean your mind cannot grow." Tears filled her eyes, but she quickly brushed them away. "Thank you, Obinna. No one has ever cared for me like this." From that day on, Obinna visited her often. He guided her around the town, teaching her to recognize new places by sound, touch, and smell. He described the colors of the sky, the shape of buildings, and the laughter of children playing in the streets. Ngozi listened closely, imagining the world he painted with his words. They shared laughter too. Sometimes, when Obinna tried to describe something and struggled to find the right words, Ngozi would laugh and say, "You are not a very good painter with words." Then Obinna would laugh as well, his deep voice echoing, and together they found joy in their small adventures. Ngozi also shared her dreams. One day, as they sat under a mango tree, she whispered, "I wish to open a school for children like me. A place where blind children can learn, play, and feel loved. I don't want anyone to feel the pain I felt when my stepmother abandoned me." Obinna looked at her with deep admiration. She had every reason to be bitter, to hate the world, yet her heart was pure. She wanted to give others what she never had. "That is a beautiful dream, Ngozi," he said softly. "And one day, it will come true." She tilted her head toward him. "You speak as if you can make it happen." He only smiled, hiding the truth about who he really was. Sometimes, dreams come true when we keep believing in them. The people in the town began to notice Obinna's visits. They saw the well-dressed young man walking beside the blind girl, guiding her gently, sometimes laughing with her, sometimes carrying books for her. Whispers filled the air. "Why does he waste his time with her?" some asked quietly. "He must be mad," others sneered. "She is blind. What can she ever give him?" A few shook their heads in confusion, wondering what bound them together. But Obinna ignored them all. He saw in Ngozi something they could not see. She was not a burden, not useless, not weak. She was strong, brave, and filled with kindness. Every time she smiled despite her pain, every time she spoke about her dreams despite her struggles, Obinna felt his respect for her grow. Ngozi, too, felt something different. She had never known a friend like Obinna. He never pitied her, never treated her as if she were broken. Instead, he treated her as equal, someone whose thoughts and dreams mattered. One afternoon, as they sat by the river, Ngozi asked him softly, "Why are you so kind to me, Obinna? You could spend your time with anyone. Why me?" Obinna looked at her, his heart heavy with the secret he still carried. He wanted to tell her the truth, that he was the president's son, that he lived in a palace with guards and servants, that his life was far different from the simple one he showed her. But he was not ready. He feared that if she knew, she would look at him differently, not as the friend she had come to trust but as someone far away, unreachable. "So," he said gently, "because you remind me of something important. You remind me that kindness, courage, and hope are worth more than gold. You teach me things without even knowing it." Ngozi was silent for a long time. Then, with a small smile, she whispered, "Then I am glad to have you as my friend." Their bond grew deeper with each passing day. Obinna took her to places she had never been. He described the markets, the tall city buildings, and the gardens filled with flowers. She listened, storing each description in her heart as if she could see them with her own eyes. At times, people laughed when they saw them together. Some pointed fingers, others whispered cruel words. But Obinna never cared. He held her hand firmly, showing the world that her blindness did not define her worth. There were also those who began to notice something different in Obinna himself. He seemed happier, more at peace, as though being with Ngozi gave him something that wealth and power never had. His guards, who secretly watched from afar, also noticed. They reported back quietly to the president, though Obinna never knew. As for Ngozi, her life, once filled with loneliness, now shone with hope. Each day she woke up eager to hear Obinna's voice, to feel the warmth of his presence. She had been abandoned, but now she was found. She had been cast aside, but now she was valued. The bond between them was not just friendship, it was something deeper, though neither of them had spoken it aloud. But in the way Obinna guided her hand gently across the Braille letters, in the way Ngozi laughed freely when he teased her, in the way they shared quiet moments under the stars, the truth was clear. Two lives, once so different, were now tied together by something stronger than the whispers of the town, stronger than the cruelty of the past, and stronger than the secrets yet to be revealed. And though Ngozi still did not know who Obinna truly was, her heart trusted him. And though Obinna still hid his true identity, his heart knew that this blind girl, abandoned and mocked, was teaching him the meaning of love and courage in ways no one else ever could. One bright morning, Obinna came to see Ngozi as usual. He asked her gently if she would take a walk with him. She smiled, nodded, and held out her hand, trusting his guiding touch. He led her carefully along the road, past the market where she had once been abandoned, past the riverbank where they had shared so many talks. The sound of carriages, guards' footsteps, and gates opening soon filled the air, though Ngozi could not see what surrounded her. When they stopped, she tilted her head and asked softly, "Obinna, where are we? This place sounds different. It feels so big." Obinna looked at her face, calm and innocent, and felt the weight of the secret he had carried for so long. He had wanted to wait, but his heart told him it was time. She deserved the truth. "Ngozi," he said quietly, "I must tell you something very important today." Her brows lifted slightly. She turned her face toward the sound of his voice. "What is it? You sound serious." He took her hand gently, guiding her to a seat beneath a shaded tree in the wide courtyard of the great house. He hesitated, searching for the right words. For weeks, he had feared this moment, afraid she would pull away, afraid she would no longer see him as the friend who had stood by her in the market, but as someone far above her reach. Yet he could not hide forever. "I am not who you think I am," he began slowly. "I am not just a young man from town. This house where we are standing is not a stranger's house. It is my family home. Ngozi, I am the son of the president." Silence followed. She blinked, her face stiff with confusion. Then a soft laugh escaped her lips, as though she thought he was teasing her. "Obinna, you should not joke like that. I may be blind, but I can tell when someone is making fun." But before Obinna could reply, voices echoed from the distance. Guards marched by, their boots striking the ground firmly. "Yes, Prince Obinna," one called as he passed, bowing in respect. Another servant, carrying a tray, hurried across the courtyard, saying, "My prince, your father awaits you in the main hall later." Ngozi froze. Her hands trembled. The words struck her heart like thunder. Her lips parted, but no sound came out. She could no longer dismiss his claim as a joke. "Prince?" she whispered, her voice shaking. "They called you Prince Obinna?" He squeezed her hands gently. "Yes. It is true. I am the president's son." Her face turned pale. Fear and doubt flooded her. She pulled her hands slightly away. Why did you hide this from me? Why did you pretend to be ordinary? Was it all a game?" Obinna's chest tightened at her words. Quickly, he held her hands firmly again so she would not drift away from him. "No, Ngozi, it was never a game. Please believe me. I never wanted to trick you. I only wanted to know if someone could care for me without knowing who I was. I wanted to be seen as a man, not as a prince. Ngozi's lips quivered. Her blind eyes turned downward as tears began to slip quietly down her cheeks. But I am nothing, she whispered. I am blind. I have no family, no riches. How can I ever stand beside someone like you? Now that I know the truth, you will surely look down on me like the others do. Obinna's heart ached. He gently lifted her chin with his hand, though her eyes could not meet his. His voice was calm but firm. Ngozi, listen to me. Do you think I pity you? Never. Do you think I stayed by your side because I felt sorry for you? No. I admire you. I admire your courage to smile even when life was cruel. I admire your kindness when you could have grown bitter. I admire your strength when others mocked you. These are things more precious than gold. You are not weak, Ngozi. You are stronger than anyone I have ever known. Her tears flowed faster now, but her heart began to feel lighter with every word he spoke. For weeks, doubt had lived quietly in her chest, whispering that he might one day leave her. Now, though she still feared the distance between their worlds, his words touched something deep inside her. She spoke in a broken voice. But the people, what will they say when they see a prince with a blind girl? They will laugh. They will mock you, just as they mocked me. Obinna smiled gently and wiped her tears with his thumb. Let them laugh. Their words do not matter. I have seen what is truly valuable, and it is not their opinion. It is you. A soft sob escaped her lips, but she leaned forward, resting her forehead against his chest. You make it sound so easy, she whispered. He wrapped his arms around her shoulders, holding her carefully, as though she was the most fragile and precious treasure he had ever known. It is not easy, Ngozi. But love never is. Still, it is worth it. And you are worth it. For a long while, they stayed like that in the quiet courtyard, the sound of birds filling the silence around them. Servants walked by from a distance, whispering in surprise, but Obinna did not care. When Ngozi finally spoke again, her voice was steadier. You truly do not see me as less? Not even with my blindness. Not less, he replied. Never less. In fact, I see you as more. You see with your heart, and that is a gift greater than sight. You remind me what it means to be human, to love, to give. You have given me something no riches could buy. Ngozi's lips curved into a trembling smile. For the first time, she began to believe that perhaps her blindness was not a curse after all. Perhaps it was the reason why she could see into people's hearts without judging their faces or their riches. And in Obinna's heart, she had found truth. Though her fears did not vanish completely, her heart began to accept what she had heard. She was sitting not with just a friend, but with the president's son. Yet in his voice, she heard no pride, no arrogance, no pity. Only love. And in that moment, Ngozi realized that no matter what the world said, no matter what whispers followed them, she had been chosen not out of pity, but out of admiration. And that was more than she had ever dared to hope for. When Ngozi entered the home of Obinna's family, she expected to feel out of place. She imagined whispers, cold looks, and the heavy silence of judgment. But instead, she was greeted with warmth. The president and his wife embraced her with open arms. They spoke to her gently, not as if she was weak, but as if she was one of their own. Welcome home, my daughter, the first lady said softly, pressing Ngozi's hand with care. Those words filled Ngozi's heart with a warmth she had never known before. It was the first time anyone had called her daughter with real love. Obinna stayed by her side, guiding her gently through the wide halls. He described each room to her, the tall windows that let in the sunlight, the gardens where flowers bloomed in every color, and the great library filled with books. But what made her happiest was not the wealth or the comfort of the house. It was the way she was treated, with respect, with kindness, with dignity. Soon, with the family's support, doctors were brought in. They gave Ngozi medical care, not to change her or make her feel less, but to help her live more easily. Specialists taught her new ways to navigate the world with her blindness, giving her tools and skills she had never known existed. She was introduced to Braille books, technology that read aloud for her, and training to walk independently with confidence. Each small step made her stronger, and with every lesson, she felt herself changing. Obinna was always there, encouraging her. You are not limited, Ngozi, he often said. You are capable of so much more than you believe. And she began to believe him. Her quiet voice grew louder. Her timid steps grew firm. Where once she had whispered prayers in fear, now she spoke boldly about her dreams. In time, she stood in front of groups of people, students, teachers, leaders, and families. With her calm but strong voice, she shared her story. She told them about pain, about being abandoned, about living with blindness in a world that often showed no kindness. But she also told them about love, about hope, about finding light in places where she thought only darkness existed. Her words touched hearts. People listened and wiped their tears. Soon, she was invited to speak in schools, communities, and even at national gatherings. She became a voice for those with disabilities, reminding the country that strength was not in sight or wealth, but in courage and kindness. Through all of this, Obinna stood proudly beside her. He was no longer just the president's son in the eyes of the people, he was the man who had chosen to walk with a blind girl when others had mocked her. Together, they became a picture of love that was pure and real. But while joy filled Ngozi's days, far away, Mama Folake heard the news. She sat in her small house, her hands trembling, her eyes wide with disbelief as neighbors spoke of the girl who was now celebrated across the land. "Do you know?" they whispered to one another. "The blind girl who was thrown away at the market? She is now loved by the president's family. She speaks to crowds, and even leaders listen to her words. The one who was rejected is now honored." Shame burned in Mama Folake's heart. She remembered the day she had left Ngozi alone in the market, walking away without looking back. She had thought the girl would be forgotten, lost forever. But now, she was the one forgotten, while the girl she had despised was being lifted high. At night, Mama Folake could not sleep. She wept quietly, haunted by guilt. She had chosen cruelty when she could have chosen love. Now she saw what that cruelty had cost her, not only the love of a child but also the chance to share in her beautiful journey. And yet, when Ngozi heard of her stepmother's sorrow, she did not grow bitter. She did not let anger poison her heart. Instead, she chose forgiveness. "Obinna," she said one evening as they walked together in the garden, "I will not let hate define me. Mama Folake hurt me deeply, but I cannot carry bitterness. She was blind in her own way, blind to love. I will forgive her." Obinna looked at her with admiration. "That is why you shine, Ngozi. Your strength is in your kindness." Not long after, Ngozi sent word to her stepmother. She invited her to come and see her. When Mama Folake arrived, she came trembling, ashamed, and afraid. She expected harsh words or rejection. Instead, Ngozi reached out, took her hands gently, and said, "I forgive you." Tears poured from Mama Folake's eyes. She fell to her knees, sobbing. "How can you forgive me after all I did? I left you to suffer. I treated you as nothing." Ngozi lifted her with a soft smile. "Because forgiveness is stronger than hate. Because kindness is stronger than cruelty. And because I will not let the past chain me when the future calls me forward." Those words broke the heavy chains of guilt that bound Mama Folake's heart. From that day, she began to change, humbled by the grace her stepdaughter had shown. Together with Obinna, Ngozi continued to live a life of compassion. They built programs for people with disabilities, making schools and workplaces open to them. They created opportunities for children who had been forgotten, giving them hope and dignity. Everywhere she went, people listened to Ngozi's voice and saw her example. They saw that strength was not in sight or in riches, but in the heart that forgives and the hands that lift others up. Her story spread across the nation, and she became a symbol of light. Newspapers wrote about her, leaders praised her, and ordinary people found courage through her words. She was no longer the blind girl abandoned at a market, she was the woman who had transformed pain into power, rejection into hope, and brokenness into beauty. And every time she stood beside Obinna, she knew the truth she had once doubted. Love and compassion truly had the power to change even the most broken story into something beautiful. The girl who had once been thrown away had become the woman who lifted others. And that was the greatest victory of all.